Hello, America. Today we're going to dive into two tragic school shootings at Florida State University and Wilmer Hutchins High School in Dallas. These have reignited debates about safety, our rights, and the Second Amendment. Then we're going to unpack a disturbing viral video from FSU showing a man recording a shooting victim while casually holding a Starbucks cup. We'll take a look at Senator Chris Van Hollen's trip to El Salvador to meet a deported immigrant. And finally, the war between Russia and Ukraine. Maybe it's time we let them figure it out for themselves. This really is not about pointing fingers. It's more about uncovering the truth, defending liberty, and finding solutions rooted in conservative values. Let's get to it.
This is The Springer Show, the voice of conservative truth. And now, here is your host, Brian Springer.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to have you along for the ride. This is The Springer Show. Before we dive in, do me a favor and take a moment, hit that subscribe button, share the show, follow us on social media, look for updates. And I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, My Patriot Supply. We'll hear more from them later. For now, let's start with the heartbreaking school shootings that are shaking our nation. There's been too many of these over the years, and it almost seems like they can always be rooted right around political turmoil. But let's talk about these. On April 17th of this year, Florida State University in Tallahassee, a 20-year-old student named Phoenix Eichner, I'm not sure. He opened fire near the student union, killing 2 men and wounding 6 others. Eichner, the son of a Leon County Sheriff's deputy, used his mother's former service pistol. The sheriff said that whenever they switch pistols to a new brand or new style or whatnot, the deputies and officers are allowed to purchase the previous ones. And I believe that's what she did, so that was her personal firearm that was at home that he got a hold of. There are reports that say that this young man held white supremacist views, and after the shooting, he was shot by police and is now in custody with serious but apparently non-life-threatening injuries, which I'm surprised. The 2 men killed were not students, and the 6 others that were injured, including the 5 shot and 1 hurt while fleeing. This really is a gut-wrenching loss, and my heart goes out to the victims and their families. I don't understand the need for this sort of violence. It frustrates me a lot, and I can't understand it, but the first thing that we want to do as conservatives is try to pick up the pieces and figure out what the problem here is. Of course, the first thing the Democrats want to do is holler, more gun control, ban the guns. Anyway, so just a few days earlier than that, on April 15th, there was another shooting at the Wilmer Hutchins High School in Dallas by a 17-year-old student, Tracy Haynes Jr., who injured 5 students, 4 by gunfire, and it says 1 with anxiety-related symptoms. I didn't dig in too deep with that one, but that's interesting. So Haynes entered apparently through an unsecured door in the school let in by another student, which sort of tells me it was probably a secured door. Bypassing metal detectors, he fired indiscriminately at a group of male students. Apparently he tried to shoot one at point blank range, but his gun jammed, was not able to shoot him. He was seen on social media shortly after the shooting, driving around or at least in a vehicle and laughing it up, having a good time. He has been charged with aggravated assault, mass shooting, first-degree felony, held on a $600,000 bond. That is apparently the second shooting at that particular school within a year. Last April, a student was shot in a targeted classroom incident. There's these school shootings from the East Coast to the West Coast, the South and the North, by these students, by these people who can't handle themselves, have mental issues or whatever. The left doesn't want to look at that. What they want to look at, how quickly can we get rid of all guns? How quickly can we blame this on the gun itself and not the mental illness of the person holding it? So politicians and activists like Jasmine Crockett, gun control advocate Fred Gutenberg, they are calling these tragedies proof of a gun violence epidemic. They demand stricter laws. Let's look at a few of the facts here, though. In the FSU case, Eichner did not legally buy the gun. He used a family member's weapon, which has happened several times in some of these shootings. In Dallas, Haynes evaded security through an unsecured door. Again, I challenged the validity of that if he had to be let in. Sounds pretty secure. If we added more laws on the books, if we put in stricter gun control, would that have stopped either one of these shootings? I really doubt it. It doesn't seem like it. Truth is, criminals really don't follow laws. We know this. That's why they're criminals. Now, David Hogg, you may know that name. He is one of the survivors of the Parkland school shooting in 2018. He is apparently now the vice chairman at the Democratic National Convention. He speaks about his thoughts on the matter. Take a quick listen.
Welcome back to America Decides. The vice chair of the Democratic National Committee is defending his newly announced $20 million effort to unseat what he calls ineffective House Democrats. His name is David Hogg, and he joins me now. David, let's start with today's news. For those in the audience who may not remember, you are a survivor of the Parkland shooting in 2018. I'm sorry that that is true, and I appreciate what you have gone through. It has led to the activism and activity we're going to talk about politically, but I will set that aside just for a second. How are you processing and absorbing today's news?
I'm thinking about my friends that are at FSU. A lot of the young people who worked with us in March for Our Lives that I had to text and say, hey, are you okay? And thankfully, the friends that I texted are okay. But there's a lot of students from Parkland at FSU. And what really bothers me here is that in Florida, we worked in a bipartisan manner to pass reforms after Parkland. We passed a red flag law that has been used over 19,000 times to disarm people that are risk themselves and others. And no law is perfect by any means, clearly. But we still have so much more work to do. And my message today would be, let's figure out what we know that there's disagreements on this issue, obviously. But we all do agree on what matters most, which is that we need to do something. And we've seen the effects of that in Florida. And it's time for us to come back together again with the legislature in session and for Democrats and Republicans to focus on what we can agree on to make everybody safer so that things like this aren't headlines and they're history.
You know, as I listen to David speaking, I can say that he is probably one of the smartest, or at least more common sense seeking Democrats that I've heard in a long time. He understands that, yes, while they have enacted laws and while there are laws on the books to help stop this sort of problem, the laws aren't going to fix everything. He also understands this is going to have to be a bipartisan issue. This cannot simply be left or right. There is no way that laws alone are going to stop this. Disarming the populace is not going to stop it. There's many countries around the world who have disarmed their populace, and they have found other means of murder, of destruction, of killing people. And it's not, I've said it 100,000 times, it's not the gun. The gun, the firearm, the weapon, whatever you want to use. You can put it out on the table. It's going to lay there all day long and not hurt a damn soul. It's the heart and the mind of the person operating it or using it. So, there's only so many laws, I guess, that you can really put into place to restrict people's access before it becomes a very restrictive regime to tell you, well, you can only secure it this way or that way. What is the answer? Is there an answer? I don't know. I really don't. That's just something we're going to have to keep working at. But I do know as conservatives, we believe in the Second Amendment, just as our forefathers did. And the Second Amendment is not wholly just for hunting or for fending off tyranny. It's for both. It's for everything. It's for you have a God-given right to own a firearm. Now, I believe in firearm safety and security. I believe in education and knowing how to properly use your firearm, when you can properly use your firearm in a defense method. When we come to school shootings and stuff like that, I think we need to look at some other options too. How can we secure our schools with armed guards, locked entry points, gun-free zones? They don't work, obviously. Putting a sign up that says this is a gun-free zone. Well, you can't shoot and kill anybody here because it's against the law. Well, that doesn't work. Having the school resource officers that a lot of places utilize now, from deputy sheriffs to police officers to whomever, armed security, is nice and it helps, but that's, one officer for the entire school. They really don't want everybody to be scared, so they generally, in my experience when I was in school, they kind of walk around and befriend people, which is a good thing, but that's not really securing the school. I say, why don't we look at maybe bring in some veterans, some people who need jobs. You've got homeless veterans out there who would love a job, clean them up or whatnot, or just some of these veterans who are out of work. They don't really want to be a police officer. They don't want to stock grocery shelves. Give them a security style job at these schools. Let them protect our children with the knowledge and experience that they have. I don't see how that would be a bad thing. Invest in mental health programs to spot troubled individuals, which are what these red flag laws that David was talking about did. You want to try to spot the troubled individual before they act violently. But it's not foolproof. It's not 100%. It's not always going to work. We can empower communities to report suspicious behavior without fear of overreach. Say something like your neighborhood watch. Well, that's one thing. You see something, say something, you call the police, they come out, whatever. Is this really going to stop school shootings? I mean, if Joe and John down the street don't really care for each other, they start calling on each other, calling the police saying, hey, so-and-so has a gun and told me, that next week he's going to go shoot up this school. Just to get him out of his house for a few days so he doesn't have to deal with him. Well, that's not really fair for them. That's not really going to work. There's got to be a lot of discussion, a lot of back and forth on this. I don't particularly want law enforcement snooping into every single citizen or legal gun owner just because somebody else has a personal problem with them. Nothing against law enforcement. They're doing their job as reported, but that doesn't mean that people won't use that against them. Maybe we can look into finding some sort of a middle ground to look into the real threats. Again, it's not ideal, it's not foolproof, but we need to work towards something. Whatever we do, we need to seriously look at not only securing the outside of the schools with, the veterans as mentioned earlier, or some sort of armed officer, but training for the teachers and staff inside the school. And when I say training, I don't mean this, run, hide, fight thing, which is good. I don't mean, training how to lock the doors, which I understand a lot of these schools are training their teachers and their staff as best as they can. They're doing everything they can. Let's arm them. Let's give the teachers and the staff, the people protecting our students on a daily basis, let's give them weapons. And if you're against having guns in the class, which I understand, give them a non-lethal weapon, not just a pepper spray or something like that. From one of the other podcasts I listen to, I've learned about a product called Byrna launchers. It's a non-lethal alternative that can incapacitate an attacker using kinetic rounds, tear gas rounds. What's it going to hurt to at least look into it? So I think we all need to contact local school boards and start demanding real security measures, trained guards, secure doors, something other than political posturing. These are our children and our communities. At this point, we cannot afford to get this wrong. Let me ask you something. If the grocery store shelves went empty tomorrow, would your family be ready? I trust My Patriot Supply with my family's food security, and here's why. They have helped millions of Americans prepare for the worst. They have over 70,000 five-star reviews. Thousands of Americans keep their 3-month emergency food kit on hand. And right now, you can get it for $200 off. That is a huge discount. And believe me, My Patriot Supply almost never offers deals like this. This food kit gives you 2,000 calories a day per person for 3 months. The food tastes great. It lasts up to 25 years, ships free, and has delivery in as little as 2 days. We can't control what's going on in the world, but we can control how prepared we are. The $200 off discount is only for a limited time, so don't wait. Go to preparewiththespringershow.com and take advantage of this deal. Preparewiththespringershow.com. So as we move forward, we're talking about the school shootings, and let's switch back to FSU for just a moment. I want you to picture this in your mind. A woman is lying on the ground, wounded from a gunshot, a victim of the shooting that we just talked about. And here comes a man walking by, not helping, not calling for aid, not doing anything other than recording her on his phone while just casually holding his Starbucks cup. That happened. It's a viral video right now, and it has sparked outrage across X, and for damn good reason. This is a symptom of a deeper, more sinister cultural problem. There are decades of eroding traditional values, family, community, respect for life. Everything that we see this day and age has somehow left us desensitized to these types of traumatic events. People are filming these tragedies for social media clout instead of stepping up to help. As conservatives, we believe in duty to others. We are grounded in faith and community. And I kind of have to ask, where's the compassion? Where was the compassion this guy apparently didn't have for this woman laying on the ground, injured? Why did he not call for help? Do something, anything. besides hit the record button. And what's sad is we see this trend everywhere. We have obsession with true crime, videos, podcasts, movies, viral TikTok challenges. People are chasing fame over virtue these days, and it's not who we are, and it's not who we should be. We need to reject this culture. We need to put down the phone and help your neighbor. If you happen to have the unfortunate opportunity to be at such a horrendous, tragic event, once it is safe to do so, render aid, help, at least call for help, something. Don't just pull out your phone. And I have worked in various fields, and some of them are fields that are more susceptible to people pulling out their phone and recording my actions. And you just have to kind of get used to it this day and age. You continue to do your job as best and professionally as you can, but know that people are not there to help. They're not there to do anything other than pull out their phones and record. Put it on Facebook, put it on Instagram, put it on TikTok. It's disgusting and it's ridiculous. We need to get more involved in our local churches, volunteer groups, community watch programs, something. We need to rebuild a human connection that we're losing every day. Conservatism is not just about politics, okay? It's about living with integrity and caring for those around us. We have been desensitized too much, and I fear it's really going to be the downfall of the humankind. From cultural issues at home, pushing out to questionable priorities abroad, let's look at Senator Chris Van Hollen's recent trip, his recent little getaway, if you will. On April 17th, Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen traveled to El Salvador to meet Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That is the illegal alien who was deported and sent to CCOT, the mega prison in El Salvador. And Democrats lost their ever-loving mind. It's been in the news day after day now. He is the one where at first, they said it was an administrative error. That error being that he was not supposed to be sent to El Salvador, but anywhere else. Then the argument is he is or is not an MS-13 member. Even though two courts, confidential informant, and ICE have all deemed him as such, he remains steadfast that he is not. It's really been back and forth. It's been a crap show. Garcia was deported in March, even though he had a court order which provided him with the withholding of removal status due to risks of gang violence. So my question is why? Why would there be any threat of gang violence or any sort of retaliation against him, anything like that, if he were to return to his home country where the president of El Salvador stated that the MS-13 gang has been completely eradicated? If there is no more gang in the country, there is no more violence, why is he so worried about it? If he's not a member of it, why would he be worried about it? That doesn't make sense to me. So the border czar, Tom Homan, was on Fox News recently, and here's what he had to say about it when interviewed.
Now, Tom, if that is not good enough for Chris Van Hollen, who traveled to El Salvador today to check on this aggrieved prisoner, or the folks over at some of the other cable networks, then I guess they'll have proven all of our points tonight.
You mean Chris Van Hollen, the guy that didn't want to sign the Laken Riley Act that protects American citizens against illegal alien criminal gang members? Who instead of protecting Americans, his constituents, his taxpayers, he goes to El Salvador and defends an illegal alien with a deportation order that's a member of MS-13 that's been designated a terrorist organization by President Trump. That's where he went to defend it. It's just disgusting. The same senator who state yesterday released an illegal alien charged with murder, refused the ICE detainer, hit the street. So rather than protecting his community, protecting the residents of Maryland, he goes to El Salvador to coddle an MS-13 gang member terrorist. It's ridiculous. And also, I talked to an MS-13 expert today who also showed me pictures of his hand, where he says absolutely the tattoo on one of his hands was absolutely an MS-13 gang tattoo, nothing questionable about it. Two judges said he's an MS-13 member. ICE says he's an MS-13 member. Intelligence community says he's an MS-13 member. El Salvador says he's an MS-13 member. So, it's just ridiculous. And as far as all the people who are speaking out against us, I cannot believe for a minute there's that many stupid people in the world. Now, AOC, on the smart meter, she's a zero. We'll give them that. But I can't believe these people really believe what they're saying. They got to be just pushing a narrative for a political reason. They can't be that dumb to think that that this person is an MS-13 gang member and a public safety threat.
So there is definitely one thing that I will say I completely agree with Tom Homan on. more than anything, is the left is using this as a political narrative. They are pushing the political narrative, and there's no way that they can actually be as dumb as they really sound or as dumb as they're presenting themselves to be. However, they do continue doing this over and over again. So who knows? Maybe they are. Anyway, Van Hollen called the meeting his main goal, and he shared photos. But El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, made it clear Garcia is staying in custody. The White House even weighed in with spokesman Kush Desai slamming Van Hollen for prioritizing what he called an illegal alien MS-13 terrorist. Garcia's lawyers deny any MS-13 ties, but the question remains. Why is a U.S. Senator flying abroad to advocate for a deported individual? So we have a U.S. Senator going to another country and demanding the release of a prisoner in that country who is a citizen of that country by the president of that country. But what are you going to do if he's released? He can't come back to the United States. He doesn't belong here. So the whole visit just seems like a moot point to me. Anyway, Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, had this to say about it.
The Democrats and the media in this room have continually and wrongly labeled Kilmar Abrego Garcia as a Maryland father. There is no Maryland father. Let me reiterate. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is an illegal alien, MS-13 gang member and foreign terrorist who was deported back to his home country.
And you know what? Caroline's right. Mr. Garcia was removed from the prison in El Salvador, dressed in civilian clothes, and then he was taken to a local hotel where he was able to meet with Senator Van Hollen. During the meeting, though, there's this whole thing now called Margarita Gate, where it appears that they both have margaritas sitting in front of them. And of course, Senator Van Hollen denies that either one of them drank any margaritas or water during the meeting. I don't really see what the big deal here is. I don't care what they drink. Drink a margarita, water, milk, scotch on the rocks. I don't care. That's not what I am prioritizing here. What I'm looking at is the fact that you, a United States Senator, went down there to demand the release of this prisoner. And you certainly did not have the right to do so, in my opinion. He did it. And President Bukele allowed him to meet with him, set up the meeting. And then President Bukele made a statement on X saying, quote, "Now that he's been confirmed healthy, he gets the honor of staying in El Salvador's custody." End quote. I love that. President Bukele is one of the best trolls on X. If you ever go to his X and look at some of the things he says, he will troll the crap out of somebody. So the left can cry and whine about this all they want. They can put court orders in place, wave flags, protest, march down the street, whatever you want. The fact is, the El Salvador citizen is in the custody of El Salvador justice system inside the country of El Salvador. It's not up to us as Americans to go retrieve him from another country. He is not an American. We don't have the right to do that. But let's be clear, this is not about hating immigrants. It's about priorities. Americans are grappling with rising crime, economic struggles, and tragedies, just like the shootings that we discussed earlier. So why is Senator Van Hollen focusing on someone who's no longer in the U.S.? Why is he going to another country when he should be worrying about his own state? As conservatives, we believe in putting American citizens first. Our families, our jobs, our security. The U.S. actually funds El Salvador to detain deportees, a policy we support to deter illegal immigration. But when elected officials seem to care more about the non-citizens than their own constituents, it undermines trust and sovereignty of our nation. Let's look at the bigger picture here. Strong borders and deportations protect our resources and safety. Open border policies strain our schools, hospitals, and communities. I mean, just look at the border states. We need legal immigration, enforced deportation, and a culture that encourages assimilation. Let me talk to you folks for just a moment. With everything going on this year, fires, windstorms, power outages hitting harder than ever, I've been looking for ways to protect my home and family. That's why I went with the Grid Doctor 3300 from My Patriot Supply. This thing is a game changer. It is the only solar generator with built-in EMP protection, and it has the power to run your fridge, medical devices, lights, whatever you need. It's not just sitting in a closet waiting for the next emergency. I've used mine to cut down on electric bills, planning to power up barbecues, camping trips, even just working outside in the spring and summer. It is quiet, it's fume-free, safe to use indoors or out, and totally portable. In a world where the grid is becoming less reliable day by day, the Grid Doctor 3300 gives me peace of mind and practical everyday use. You can get yours at My Patriot Supply, America's trusted source for emergency preparedness. Just go to preparewiththespringershow.com. Preparewiththespringershow.com. So one thing that's, it's kind of been out of the news, but seems to be slowly working its way back in, is this war with Russia and Ukraine. Just a few weeks ago, it was top news. It was big news, especially when President Zelensky from Ukraine came to the White House and was disrespectful to our own president and vice president. And it almost seems like he came here just begging for money and continued to try, even when President Trump said, no, we want a peace accord. He would turn around and say, well, no, I want more money in order to have peace. It just didn't work out well for him. The war over there's kind of fallen off the radar, with the tariffs, shootings, the immigration. Everything keeps kind of going around and around here, and this one is slowly poking its head back up. Earlier, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke when he was leaving Paris about the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, or the lack thereof. He said, basically, it's not our war. And you know what? He's right. It's not. Maybe we should keep our heads out of it. Secretary Rubio said, if these two knuckleheads here can't come together and figure it out, then we're out. The U.S. is done. I don't understand or know what's holding them up other than stubbornness, other than, both of them demand this or that, maybe a little piece of the pie or all of it or none. I don't know. But they're not moving one way or the other, and they're just continuing to fight over there. Getting nowhere. Nobody's pushing forward. It seems to become a stalemate. Anyway, here is Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He's talking on a tarmac, and there's a little noise behind him because there's a plane running in the background, but I think we can hear him pretty good. So take a listen to this.
I think it's important to remind everybody that the Ukraine war is a terrible thing, but it's not our war. We didn't start it. The United States has been helping Ukraine for over the last 3 years, and we want it to end. But it's not our war. I want everyone to understand that. And the reason why I make that point is the president has spent 87 days at the highest level of his government repeatedly taking efforts to bring this war to an end. We are now reaching a point where we need to decide and determine whether this is even possible or not, which is why we're engaging both sides. As you know, Ambassador Witkoff has had not one, not two, but 3 meetings with Vladimir Putin to determine the Russian perspective on this and understand what it would take for them to end it. We've, General Kellogg, myself, and others have had repeated engagements with the Ukrainians. So we came here yesterday to sort of begin to talk about more specific outlines of what it might take to end the war, to try to figure out very soon, and I'm talking about a matter of days, not a matter of weeks, whether or not this is a war that can be ended.
So I know that's a little bit noisy, but you can clearly hear Secretary of State Marco Rubio. You can really hear the frustration in his voice. He's over there, he's trying to make things work, and neither side wants to budge, neither side wants to push or give anything. It's not really working out for either side. And, as he said, this is not a matter of weeks, this is a matter of days. They come to the table and they start shaking hands and coming to, an accord here, or we're just going to back out and say, hey, you two just deal with it. Maybe the EU can step in. They seem to like to put their nose where they don't belong anyway. So, yeah, why not let them have at it? I scroll through social media and I look at different things, and something that caught my eye last night, actually, there was a person on there talking about that this was a practice they did back in 2018-19 during COVID, and that they're suggesting that people do this. I do not, however, suggest, as this is nothing more than theft. This person stated or suggested you can go into a grocery store and buy your supplies, buy your groceries, buy what you need, but get your other items, your essential items, put them on a separate receipt. Things like, toilet paper. He included peanut butter. Your different things that you need, your soap, your essential items, basically. And those may change from person to person. He suggested doing this, putting them on a different receipt. As you leave, you go to your car, you load everything up, you leave the receipt for your essential items in the cart, in the shopping cart, so that the next person can come, get that shopping cart, grab your receipt, go inside the store, pick those very same items, and then as they leave, they have a receipt. Hey, look, I already bought these. They can walk out, and guess what? These receipt checkers at these stores, I don't think they're checking them that closely or that good, and they're probably just be like, okay, yeah, hey, have a good day. Now you're walking out with stolen goods. Anybody who does this needs to be prosecuted. Fact of the matter is, this is theft. It is absolutely not legal. You should not do this. If you want to purchase extra supplies and donate to somebody in need or give them to a friend or family, there's nothing wrong with that. I absolutely implore that. But allowing others to steal, I don't care if it's from a mom and pop store or from these big box stores, it's theft. So anyway, that's all we're going to talk about today. Got some other things we're working on this coming week. I believe we're going to have North Carolina House Representative Jared Lowry on to discuss one of his more interesting, controversial bills here in the state, as well as some other topics. So, look forward to that. I certainly look forward to talking to him. But in the meantime, you can find us on all the popular podcast platforms. If you like the truth we're laying down for you, do me a favor. Follow us on X at Springer_show. On Facebook, just search for The Springer Show. On Instagram, at _Springer_show. True Social at Springer B. And on YouTube, at The Springer Show. Make sure to like, follow, share, help us get the word out. I appreciate all of you being here. I want to thank you to our sponsor, My Patriot Supply, and I really look forward to having you guys all back. Check us out next time. This is The Springer Show. God bless you all.